The New York Jets are entering this offseason with really more questions than answers, in my opinion, especially when it comes to the actual roster itself. We have the GM in place, we have the head coach in place now. The vision is clear, no nonsense, hardworking, accountable attitude. Love it. I love the direction that the Jets are going in on paper. But roster wise, there's a lot to do. There's still no answer right now to what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers, and then you have to figure whatever happens with Aaron Rodgers, that's going to happen with Devontae Adams as well. And then outside of the quarterback issue there, you have to consider defense. Safety is a big thing. Defensive tackle is a big thing. So this draft, free agency, of course, is important, but the draft is going to be super important for the New York Jets. So I figured we would take some time now after all the mock drafts that I've done for this channel up until this point for the New York Jets. I figured that we would take a look at 5 players that I think the Jets should absolutely consider taking at number 7 overall. Now that we have a little bit more of an identity, we know maybe where the head coach is going to want to take the direction of the team. So let's take a look at it. First, I want to take a look at some honorable mentions. So number 1, of course, is going to be Abdul Carter. Now, the only reason Abdul Carter is an honorable mention for me is I don't think that he's going to be anywhere near the 7th overall pick. I think he's probably gone off the board by pick number 4. I feel like would be the absolute ceiling for him. I personally think he is the best overall player in the entire draft class. So it would be absolutely fantastic if Abdul Carter would make it to number 7. You have to run the card up to the podium, up to Roger Goodell if you are the New York Jets, if Abdul Carter is somehow still on the board. But that's the only reason I think that he's an honorable mention for me, is because I just don't think it's realistic for him to be there. Anything can happen. It's the NFL draft. There is a possibility, a very, very slim possibility that he is there. But nonetheless, he's going to be an honorable mention for me. I just didn't think it would make sense wasting a spot in my top 5 for Abdul Carter when more than likely he's not going to be there. Number 2 for me would be trade down. So new regime, a lot of holes to fill. Number 7 is a premium top 10 draft pick. There might be, especially if some players do fall farther than they're anticipated to, you have to think that there are going to be some teams calling for that number 7 overall spot. Now, a trade down is something I would consider if the trade isn't too far down. So I would cap it at maybe like 18, 11 spots, 10 or 11 spots down is really where I would cap it. I feel like anything other than that, you have to get an absolutely massive return, maybe even involving a player of some sort. But yeah, I would still love to be in range for someone like Tyler Warren, who's next on this, or Colston Loveland, something like that, that we'll be able to take with that pick in the mid part of the first round. Then we just mentioned it. I'm going to mention it again. Tyler Warren is someone that I would love to see the Jets draft. I don't think 7 is appropriate, to be quite honest with you. I do think he is a fantastic tight end. He's a fantastic tight end prospect. And if Brock Bowers didn't come out of the draft last year and Brock Bowers didn't exist, we could be looking at Tyler Warren as one of the greatest tight end prospects of all time. You know, I said that a bunch of times last year about Brock Bowers and people laughed at me. And the guy is already on course to be a Hall of Famer in his NFL career. Tyler Warren, I feel like, is a fantastic overall prospect, probably not getting as much love as he deserves. I just don't think 7th overall. If Brock Bowers didn't go until pick 12, I don't think Tyler Warren warrants a top 10 overall pick. But like I just said, if the Jets were to trade down, Tyler Warren would probably be my number 1 choice. And number 4, Kelvin Banks. I just wanted to throw an offensive lineman in there. I do think Kelvin Banks overall is probably the best offensive lineman in the entire draft class. This is a draft class where I feel like a lot of offensive tackles are probably going to wind up being better guards at the NFL level. Banks is someone that could wind up being a guard, but someone I would be very comfortable with sliding over to right tackle if the Jets did want to solidify their offensive line. Things are in place. You have Olufashinu as your franchise left tackle. You know, you still have Elijah Vera Tucker, Joe Tippmann, John Simpson. You're really just missing that right tackle, and then your line should be set for the near future. So Banks is an option too. And then number 5 is the one that I think is most unlikely, but a quarterback that falls. So someone like Cam, really the only quarterback I'd really consider in the first round if he started to fall would be Cam Ward. I just don't think that I would be really on board with Shadur Sanders. It's nothing against saying some people think, oh, Shadur Sanders comes with a big personality. If you draft him, you have to draft his dad. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I just think that Shadur Sanders is someone that just reminds me of a very average NFL quarterback. And I'm not trying to draft an average NFL quarterback with the number 7 overall pick. I think he's got great touch. He's got good accuracy. I don't think his arm is truly there. His mobility truly isn't there. His pocket presence isn't really there. I think that he's going to be someone that, if he does get drafted in the first round, is going to be a pretty average first round pick. You know, he's not going to be someone that blows you away. He's going to be I would say like a Marcus Mariota would be like a really good example of Shadur Sanders, someone that could make those highlight reel plays, who might have some games where he's going to go off, but overall, he's not going to be worth that selection in the first round. That's just my opinion. Things could change, but that's what I've seen of him so far from what I viewed. But those are my scenarios for the honorable mentions. Now we're going to get into it. And number 5, I have Mike Green. Maybe a unpopular pick for the New York Jets. And you might sit here and go, oh, I stopped watching the video at number 5 when he put Mike Green there. Okay, that's completely fine with me. I'm just giving my 2 cents and I'm giving my opinion. I think Mike Green is a fantastic football player. I think if Abdul Carter didn't exist in this draft class, Mike Green is easily the best edge rusher in the entire draft class. I mean, I don't know how familiar you guys are with the Senior Bowl. I don't know if you guys really truly pay attention to that, but whatever doubts scouts and Twitter GMs had about Mike Green was answered at the Senior Bowl. He ate and left no crumbs. And I hate the fact that I said that, but it truly personifies what he did at the Senior Bowl. He did leave early. He's not going to participate in the game. Interviews, measurables, drills, that's usually all you really need to see the game. To me, honestly, doesn't really matter too much, but I do have friends that are currently down in Mobile, Alabama right now, and a couple of them have told me that Mike Green is absolutely fantastic, and that's something that really the tape shows. Now, you have personal evaluations, you have tape as well. Tape doesn't lie to me. I know that he plays at Marshall, which is, I believe, a Conference USA team, so you're not playing the cream of the crop there in Conference USA, but Mike Green, man, just the speed to power conversion is something that you truly haven't seen in very many draft prospects. He reminds me of, not body-wise, not player-wise, just the scenario. He reminds me of Khalil Mack, where it's a small school. You know, Khalil Mack was from Buffalo. Mike Green is from Marshall. You know, you might argue, oh, the competition isn't as good, but you can't deny the tape. You can't deny the statistics. This year, fantastic. I believe he led the FBS in sacks with 17, or would hard to not lead the FBS in sacks with 17. Just a fantastic overall player. I know 6'3", 236 pounds doesn't seem that great, but the New York Jets do love RAS scores. He's going to be someone that, if he goes to the combine, is going to put up an incredibly high athleticism score. You know, there are question marks surrounding Jermaine Johnson. He's coming off of an Achilles tear. Will McDonald, in my opinion, was kind of a tale of 4 seasons, where I feel like he started off really well, then he cooled down, then he showed up again, then he cooled down again towards the end of the season. So yes, the statistics were there for Will McDonald, but I don't think he consistently put it together throughout the entire season. You know, 10 sacks is awesome, don't get me wrong. And I was a Will McDonald doubter after his rookie year, but I think he's firmly in place to being one of those rotational edge rushers for the Jets for the very, very long future. And I do think they need an upgrade on the edge, especially with the uncertainty of Jermaine Johnson. So number 5 is my most unlikely, but this is someone that I think the Jets coaching staff should seriously consider looking into. I think Mike Green is going to be a steal for whoever drafts him in this draft class. Then we're going over to number 4, Malachi Starks. Now, I know last time the Jets drafted a safety inside the top 10, it worked out for a little while, then it got very, very hairy after that. And we're talking about Jamal Adams, but Malachi Starks is a fantastic football player. Kind of had a down season, 1 interception, 3 pass deflections. Last year, he had 3 interceptions. The year before that, he had 2. He's still a fantastic overall player. And in this Aaron Glenn defensive system, I know that Steve Wilks is going to be the defensive coordinator, but you're going to have some Aaron Glenn in there as well. Glenn really, really worked with 3 safeties. He really turned into ball players in Detroit. Melifonwu, you had, I believe, Afedi Melifonwu. Then you had Kirby Joseph. And then, of course, you had Brian Branch, who he turned into a megastar, who I did think from the day that I watched tape on him, from day one, you could go back. I still have the video on there. my Brian Branch prospect profile, I said this guy's going to be a superstar at the NFL level from day one. Malachi Starks is someone that I feel like would thrive in an Aaron Glenn, Steve Wilkes system. The Jets do need safety, and he is easily the best safety in the class, in my opinion. Fantastic size, can come down and play in the box, really good in coverage as well. I think he's just an all-around really good player, and this is someone that I think Aaron Glenn and co would be genuinely interested in with the number 7 overall pick. This is someone that, again, even if they slightly trade down to like a 10 or a 12, something around that range, Malachi Starks would 100% be in play. I think he's a fantastic player. Then going to number 3, Tet McMillian, of course, is going to be on this list. What really this kind of revolves around what happens with Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams. I feel like if Aaron Rodgers skips town, Davante Adams is going to follow suit. Then you have quite literally a massive hole at wide receiver because you have Allen Lazard, you have Garrett Wilson, and you have Malachi Corley as your top 3. And that's not something that's very inspiring and does not scream playoff football to me. But also, on the flip side, I think that Allen Lazard is probably going to be a cap casualty this offseason. So, which makes getting Tet McMillian, even if Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers stays, that much more appealing because Tet is someone that has route running ability that you don't see from a 6'5" wide receiver. He moves like someone that is much, much smaller than him as well. What I really like about him is his suddenness and his late hands too. That's something that a lot of evaluators truly look at, is those late hands. Now, Rome Odunze was such a fantastic prospect for me last year because of that late hands ability, that ability to concentrate and flash those hands right at the very last second when you think there's no way this ball is coming towards this wide receiver. And then he just throws those hands up there in a split second and he makes that catch. Tet McMillian is far and away in a wide receiver class that I think is deep. I don't think it's necessarily elitely talented. I think there's a lot of good receivers in this draft class. I don't think anyone is, like far and away like last year where you had Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Marvin Harrison, Lad McConkey. I don't think any of those guys are truly going to make the impact that those guys did in their rookie year, but Tet McMillian is far and away the best wide receiver. And if Davante Adams skips town, or even if he doesn't, I think Tet McMillian should certainly have a case to be the number 7 overall pick if he does get to the Jets. There are certain mock drafts that don't have him even getting to the Jets, but I think if he's sitting there at number 7, you definitely have some consideration to do. At number 2, I have Will Johnson. So Will Johnson only played in 6 games this past season, but he was really good in those 6 games that he played. 2 interceptions, 3 pass deflections, 2 defensive touchdowns. He's someone that's not really ever going to light the box score up for you in terms of collegiately. He only has 10 pass deflections in his entire collegiate career in 3 years. I believe he only has 7 interceptions as well. But this is someone that is just so good in coverage that they don't even look to his side of the field. Now, we are all Jet fans here. Sauce Gardner on one side of the field, more often than not, takes away that entire side of the field. Imagine having 2 cornerbacks on either side that can completely shut down either side of the field. That is a prospect that I think a defensive-minded coach probably won't be able to pass up. I think Will Johnson is a fantastic football player, the best cornerback in this entire draft class, in my humble opinion. And I think pairing him, a lot of people have some reservations about Will Johnson's top-end speed. And to me, that's perfect because if you have Sauce Gardner on your team already, I know that Robert Saleh had guys staying on either side. They didn't follow wide receivers. You could have Will Johnson and Sauce Gardner follow wide receivers because in Aaron Glenn's defensive system, you're going to have a lot more man coverage, a lot more aggressiveness. So you're going to have to get big physical corners that could handle those big physical wide receivers. And Will Johnson at 6'2", 202 is someone that I think can absolutely handle those big secondary receivers at the next level. So Will Johnson is someone that I think if that card is brought up and Roger Goodell says Will Johnson, cornerback from Michigan, I think Jets fans should really, really get excited about. And then, of course, number 1, to nobody's surprise, is going to be Mason Graham. I've explained in previous videos, I do have my slight reservations about Mason Graham as a prospect himself. I think that he is very good. I don't think he's necessarily elite, but the caveat to that with the New York Jets is when you pair Mason Graham next to someone that is elite, like Quinnen Williams, you're going to have quite literally one of the most elite duos in the NFL at your 2 defensive tackles, because Quinnen Williams is someone that gets double teamed quite literally more than almost everyone in the NFL. And if you have Mason Graham next to him, you cannot double team him because you can't double team Mason Graham either. So you're going to force the offensive line to put either one of these guys in one-on-one scenarios. And these guys are just absolute game disruptors. I don't have to tell you guys about Quinnen Williams. The all-pro defensive tackle is, of course, a game wrecker. But Mason Graham is an absolute game wrecker. Don't let the paltry numbers say anything about that. I mean, he was constantly, it was him and Kenneth Grant getting double teamed basically all year, not at the same time, obviously, but Mason Graham is someone that I think adds a little bit of both to the defensive line, where he could be a great run stopper and he could be a great pass rusher as well. If you want to, I'm assuming that Quinnen Williams would take more of the pass rushing role. I think Mason Graham is a tick more athletic than Quinnen Williams, someone that would probably, have a faster get off and would probably have more in his bag pass rushing wise. But I think any scenario that you put him in next to Quinnen Williams, he is going to thrive, and they're immediately going to have, first off, a way better run defense than they did last year, because that was some of the saddest run defense that I've seen in Jets history. And not only that, he's mean and he's nasty. And that's a player that embodies the Aaron Glenn physicality, the aggressiveness, the nastiness, the meanness. I want to run through my opponent. That's what Mason Graham brings to the table, as well as being an overall really, really good player. So I think if he's there at 7, you don't overthink it. I truly think the toss-up is between someone in the secondary and Mason Graham, and it really starts in the trenches. So if you want to build a good football team, you go out and you get Mason Graham to pair next to Quinnen Williams. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There is my 5 players that I think the New York Jets should absolutely look into drafting at the number 7 overall pick. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Please leave a like. Please subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and I hope I see you in the next one.